This interview is brought to you by Burn It Up Coaching and Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self, the 21-day challenge. So if you are an entrepreneur or high achiever and you're feeling stuck, plateaued, vaguely dissatisfied, or you're really just not getting the most out of your time, your energy, your business to create the life of your dreams, the 21-day challenge might be the reignition into your passion, your self-belief, your strategy, your clarity that you have been looking for. And over the period of 21 days, we're going to have daily check-ins to make sure that you are on track and on point, weekly deep dive calls to make sure that you are uncovering the limiting beliefs and blocks that might keep you from success or have kept you from success in the past. And we're going to dial in your daily habits and routines to make sure that you are firing on all cylinders as often as possible, setting yourself up to success, for success, to win, and keep winning. Long-term sustainable growth. So the 21-day challenge is extremely intense, and it is not for everyone. But if you are one of the select few who wants an extraordinary life, you want to become your greatest possible self, then it might be a great fit for you. To find out if it is, send me a message, ask me about the 21-day challenge. I will send you an intake form, and if it is the right fit, we'll proceed forward. If not, I'll direct you in the direction of some other resources or people who might be able to support you. Cool? Cool. So send me a message about the 21-day challenge. It's not for everyone, but if it is for you, I would love to work with you. And let's move on to the iTunes review of the week, and that is by Unlimited Beliefs. Unlimited Beliefs says, helpful, usable content. Really like this show. The content is so helpful because it's told through the story of the guest, which is relatable, and it's easy to plug in and use, as well as inspiring along the way. Tune in. Thank you so much, Unlimited Beliefs, and if you are excited to give us a review, go ahead and do that right now. beyourgps.com/iTunes, and you can leave us a review there or whenever is convenient for you. Or you can search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on iTunes, or search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on Facebook and find us there. So thanks in advance for doing that. We appreciate you. We love your feedback. I read everything you guys write, guys and ladies write, and thank you again for doing that. Now, for the woman of the hour, such an incredible superstar, and just personally, we had a conversation last week, and I was so grateful for how open she is and how open we can both be and how transparent and how real and how just awesome our creation is. Our conversation is extraordinary, and Amy is going to be awesome on this next hour. So get excited, buckle up, because you are the one you've been waiting for. Amy Schuber is a life and business coach. She has been working with women leaders, entrepreneurs, and individuals for the past decade. She loves guiding women back to help themselves, with her strategic mind, savvy spirituality, curated resources, and straight up smarts. She has an innate ability to see clients' true potential and strategies needed to unlock the possibilities. Amy is also the host of the Inspired Conversations, bringing insight from today's thought leaders to help all of us live into life and business in the most conscious, mindful way. Amy truly believes you are the one you've been waiting for. And she is such a superstar. She's ready. She's here. Amy, you ready to rock this?
I am ready to rock it with you.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. So I love everything about everything you're doing. Inspired Conversations. I love being inspired. You're a coach. You're helping people, transforming their lives, and just how you show up. Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show today to share with our audience about your life, your work, and what you're creating.
Chris, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be in a conversation with you, because you and I always go into this deep vortex like fast, and I love it. So thank you for bringing me on. It's such an honor to be here with you and your people and your tribe, and I just love the connection. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. So we're diving right into the theme of the day, which is recalibration. So Amy, how has this concept of recalibration played a part in your life, in your journey, in your being? Recalibration, what does it mean to you?
Gosh, it means so many things. And it's such an interesting question of the day for me personally,
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm recalibrating now, like as we speak, like
Mm.
even today, working on the few things I was working on to realign with my business and some of my intentions and my goals. And I think recalibration means, to me, it means you have to be calibrated first,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So you have to have your set point first.
Mm.
So we become off track and we go in all these different directions, and I kind of feeling I gotta focus back. And I think when we recalibrate, we're focused back. We're going back to our set point. And sometimes there's an adjustment. Our set point might be off and it might have changed, and we might have changed the directions a little bit. But I think, when we recalibrate, we get back to it and we can change it. That's what's cool about it. We can do whatever we want with it. And so I think that's what it means to me. And it's interesting because it's so happening for me right now as I reconnect and reevaluate and realign with myself and my intentions and some of the changes that are happening for me in my business and my conversations and my podcast and being fluid to it. I think sometimes when we say calibrating, we kind of think of like the specific clock or like winding in. It has to be precise and perfect. And on some level, yes, it does. And then allow it to be fluid and flow with it as well.
Right. There's the plane analogy. Plane is calibrated to its destination. It knows where it's going to go, but then it's off track, like 95 or whatever, 99% of the time, because it's constantly recalibrating. So I love how you shared that, and having that set point clear first, being calibrated first. That's gold. Juicy, Amy. Love it. Okay, so let's dive into more of who you are and what you're up to, what your work is in the world. I gave a little bit of an overview with the intro and the bio, but just tell us in your own words what you're working on.
Gosh, who I am, so many things. So I'm a coach. I do business strategy, as you said in my bio. And it's funny, I've been working with women entrepreneurs for the past about 10 years. Prior to that, I was in corporate America and kind of looking and finding myself and doing that whole deal prior to launching into my own business. And I think I recalibrated a lot along the way to sort of get to where I am now and get to here, and also allow myself to take in new things and opportunities, like being a podcast host and having a podcast. So, it's interesting. So I'm a coach, I'm a podcast show host, and I've been doing that for 4 years. I'm in my 4th year, celebrating that soon. And so it's been an interesting journey and a ride. And I think at the end of the day, who I am is, someone who is on purpose to connect with people and help other people see who they really are. And, you had said something that really speaks to me, and it's like a thread that shows up in so many areas of my life. It is, you are the one you've been waiting for. And the reason that is something that comes up for me and that I share is because at a moment when I was searching and I was looking for my next thing, when I was not quite certain of what my purpose was, and I didn't feel on purpose, even though it's always with us, right?
Totally.
There was a Hopi poem that Maria Shriver read at the women's conference, and the very last line is, "We are the ones we've been waiting for." And it was such an aha moment for me. It was like, oh my gosh, I've been looking outside myself for all the answers. I mean, I'm a reader, I'm a class taker, I'm a learner. I'm always exploring and learning and doing that. But I was seeking outside myself for the answers. And that just hit home. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And it just made me realize, like, to drop back into myself and let myself know what I already know. And as much as I knew already, I didn't know that I had the answers. And as soon as I realized that, like, doors started opening and things started happening. And that's when the door opened for me to step into coaching, and had an opportunity, and I stepped into it. And so I've been doing that ever since. And so I just love the connection, like you and I have, it's like to connect and then keep that conversation going and going and going and seeing how we can support one another is the brilliance that I know to be life, and that I know to show in the world as well.
Amen. And I love you are the one you've been waiting for, because it allows us to come from choice. it allows us to be the creator of our reality. And I think there's so many people putting all the responsibility, all of the, in a good way, empowering responsibility, but all the blame and the how it can happen, how my life looks like the way it does, it's always outside of themselves. But when it's you are the one that you've been looking for, like you are the one, if it is to be, it's up to me mentality, everything changes. Life changes. It's like, oh crap, you mean I gotta be responsible for my thoughts? I gotta be responsible for the things I say, do, the places I go, the people I'm around? What? That's a lot, it can be heavy for a lot of people, but I love for the people who are ready to be their greatest possible self, or at least they have that calibrated, right? The vision. I just know I'm meant for more. Then this resonates so freaking deeply with them, because I know it's been such a huge journey for me, like starting on my journey of entrepreneurship, knowing if it is to be, it's up to me. And for a lot of times putting the blame off on my parents, being irresponsible about the actions that I was taking, the habits that I was doing, and just like waiting around for someone to come save me. Nobody's going to come save you. And I'm just so grateful that I've learned that lesson. And now I get to surround myself with amazing people like Amy Schuber. Woo!
Well, you know what else happens when when you realize you're the one you've been waiting for? It's like, when you're like standing on the diving board and you're kind of scared because it's the high dive and people are like, what are you waiting for? And you're like, I don't know, I'm scared. It's like you can go two ways. You could jump, you could stand there, or you could get down, and it's like when you realize you have the power, to me, that means like, I have the power. I've been waiting. And now I realize I have the power of choice. And no right or wrong, neither here nor there, right? It's like you have the power and it's in you. And I think, it reminds me, just like, what are you waiting for? I mean, I've been asked that question a lot of times, and it's like, I don't know, what am I waiting for? And then that sort of gives you the permission to release it, or, and it can be in any area of your life, really. And I think, especially when you become an entrepreneur, you open yourself up to the most massive personal development you could ever request and ask for in your life. And your stuff starts showing up, stuff you didn't even know you had, like baggage you might be carrying that you didn't know was in there, starts coming up, and it reveals itself to you. And I think it gives you this exercise to be supportive of yourself and allow yourself. And it probably goes with anything. Like my podcast has done the same for me in a different way. My podcast and interviewing people, some like what you're doing, it gives that mirror to me, totally. Like every conversation I've had, it has happened at the divine, right, perfect time. If I've had a struggle day and I'm like, oh, I got all these interviews to do, every person will say something that supports me in my life. And it's so revealing of how the world works and shows up to support us, because my intention wasn't to have conversations to support me in my life. My intention was to create inspired conversations to support everybody listening, right, so they could take one thing and do something with it. And in turn, I'm taking so much out of it, which was so unexpected. And I think when we can expect the unexpected, when we show up and answer that call of who we are, and we all know who that is, there's layers of ourselves that cover it up for different reasons. Like, for instance, when I was in corporate America, I was swirling in like the Monday blues and unhappy. And I swirled in it for a while before I took the leap and quit and made some different choices. And then when that happened, things opened up for me in my life, and opportunities started leading me to my purpose, because I was in a place of such lack of fulfillment and just like, wow, is there more? Because I didn't realize I did all this work to be in a cubicle, that's a gray little cubicle that doesn't feed my soul. I mean, I was the person in my job that went to the bathroom the most and left the building the most. I worked in San Francisco. So I like went across the street to Walgreens like 10 times a day because I needed to get out of there and take a break. So, that's a little message.
Well, I think like you said, it's important that we own, like, that we are the one. And if we are doing things that are taking us, like, hey, that are telling us, are giving us signals and hints that we're not on track, it's important to listen to that. You and I were talking about intuition and all kinds of amazing stuff, last week when we were talking. And before we go any further, I would love to dive back into that journey of going from corporate to where you are today. What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned, the biggest challenges that you faced along the journey? Because I know there's people out there who are at this point in their journey where they're frustrated, they're lost, they're stuck. And let's give them some clarity on, maybe some of the things that you went through that got you results, that the wisdom and the lessons you learned?
Yeah, gosh, so many. So, what's interesting is I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, generations of entrepreneurs. However, when I grew up, it was like go to school, graduate, go to college, graduate, and go get a job. Like go get a job was like my dad's mantra, I think. Wow. And I understand why now, but at the time I was like, okay, so I did. I got a job. I left school. I moved to San Francisco, and I got a job in corporate America. And I bounced around a little bit, but worked at some really big companies in the city, and landed at a company that didn't serve me, didn't serve my spirit. And I worked hard. And it was funny because they gave me an ultimatum. When I first joined the company, because before I got my last corporate job, I was knowing I was meant to do other things, and I was searching for it. And so I had gotten laid off from a .com during the bust. And then I was like, I'm going to take my time. And I did. And I started contract work for this company. And then it came time where they said, you either come on board full time or your contract is up. And at the time, the job market was really tough in San Francisco. So I was like, crap, I have to take this job. So I felt forced into it. And I felt like, I didn't get enough time to figure it out. So I took the job, and then, cut to 5 years later, it was unfulfilling. I was getting passed over for job like promotions when I was the one doing the work, and it didn't feel good. And I just felt angry, and I had the Monday blues. Like I would do anything. I took all my vacation time. I took all my sick days. I mean, I maxed out everything I could. And, right there is a sign. I just didn't want to be there. So it just came to a point where I got a coach, and I took a career class, like a traditional career class, and just started doing all the personality tests and everything, because I was that desperate. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Because this is not it. And so I started exploring and having that self-discovery moment. And I think one of the biggest lessons at the time when I was in it was I started the process of self-discovery. Yes. I hired a coach, like I started asking the questions like, well, what's more for me here? Like, what else can I get out of this job? And if I stayed here, is it going to really fulfill me? Do I want to be the VP of that role? Do I want to be, the manager of that department? And it was like, no, nothing fulfilled me there. And I wasn't aligned with the creativeness of who I am. And I was in tech, it was a media agency. So it was a bit creative, but all of our clients were high tech, which, I could care less about all that stuff. So no offense, I love technology, but I don't need to understand how it works. But so I think one of the things was I took a chance and started exploring for myself. And when I started doing that, things started shifting and changing, and opportunities started coming towards me. So, it was interesting. 6 weeks was the career class. And the first night, the woman said, a lot of you might have changes throughout this next few weeks, whether you realize it or not. And all of us were like, okay. So cut to the 6th week, and this was not my intention at all. That 6th night of our class, I had quit my job that day and was moving out of San Francisco and back to Southern California. Wow. And in the beginning of that 6 weeks, that I had no idea I was going to be leaving the city because I loved it there. And so it was really interesting. Things just started happening that moved me to say, enough is enough. You need to take a chance and take a risk. And so I went into the class and was like, you guys will never believe this. I quit my job today. And circumstances sort of forced me to do it that particular day. But, it wasn't because of the class. And then another person ran in the class and did the same thing. So it was interesting. Because
the same night?
Yeah, the same day she quit her job. She had a big corporate job too. And there was a guy in our class that was like, what? He's freaking out. Everyone's quitting their jobs. But it was something that was interesting because it was this foreshadowing for me, because when I quit, left, and, moved back to Southern California, I gave myself some space. I had savings, so it was okay. I'm not saying quit your job if you're, want to do something dramatic and you don't have, a plan. I kind of had a plan, and I had enough savings to have a plan to take the time. But what happened was after I quit, I started exploring entrepreneurship. I started exploring like interior design. I took a class. I took an 8-week certificate class at the Interior Design Institute. I started doing these things I hadn't done like in college because I just sort of got through it, like take these certain classes, get your degree, graduate, and go get a job. I didn't do more personal development exploring during that time. However, it all serves me, in the right way. So, so I say that about the 6-week class because then after a year of exploring, I took another job because I started feeling pressure, like go get a job. That go get a job started coming up. So I did, and I got a job in another corporate environment. But 8 months later, I got laid off. It was for Lehman Brothers, and then Lehman Brothers, shut down, and I was part of that. And so I got laid off, and so I was like, okay, now I feel like the universe has gave me permission to really find it. And I went into an entrepreneur class at that time, and I put a business that I'm no longer doing, and I didn't even do it for very long, just to explore it. And at the end of that class, the woman who was running it said, would you want to do this in Orange County? Because I was taking the class in Los Angeles. And I looked at her and I was like, yeah, what does that mean? I said yes. And that like kicked down the door to coaching, to connection, to supporting entrepreneurs. And I ran that group in Orange County for 4 years and built my business up off of that. And so what I witnessed too, as I was working and facilitating entrepreneurs in those incubators and in that 4-week course, the same thing would happen. These women would come, they would put their ideas in, they would quit their jobs, they would lose their jobs, they would get laid off. Crazy things happen just because they put voice to their desires and what they really wanted. So what I recognized in that, having it be my own experience and then witnessing it, it was like, whoa, this is real. When you put voice to what you really want in your life, the universe shows up in the most crazy, random, amazing ways. And sometimes it doesn't feel good because you might get laid off and you're like, well, crap, I didn't want to lose my job. But it pushes you in that direction that you don't realize you need to go maybe at the time. So it forces your hand. And so that brought me to doing what I'm doing now. And so it's really interesting because that laid the ground for me to build my coaching program and coaching practice, and also into my podcasting, because I was connected with so many women and I was interviewing people because we had monthly meetings. I was interviewing people along the way for the group live at live events. And so that I feel like that helped me train to be in the podcasting interviewing space, because when I started that, it wasn't something I ever thought I would do. Someone had just said, you should have a podcast. And because I'm a curious person like you, I like to talk to people. I like to learn. I like to share what I learn. I'm like a curator of resources and people and information and connections. It seemed just perfect. And it is. I'm so glad I said yes to podcasting when I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't had never downloaded one in my life 4 years ago. So it opened another door, and I said yes to something. So along my journey, I guess, getting back to what you were asking me, was like, listen to yourself and follow it, even if it seems completely random, completely ridiculous, completely whatever word you want to use to describe it. Like, don't have judgment, but just trust yourself and walk into it, because something that you desire now is on the other side of whatever comes for you. And hindsight, of course, we can always figure it out, but when you're in it, it feels a little bit raw and scary. And I think you just have to trust that. And as I look back on that journey, I wish I would have done some things and trusted myself sooner, because I had hits prior to, leaving my job and all that stuff. I wish I would have done it like the 5 years prior, but it is what it is. Maybe I wasn't ready, but I had the hits. I just ignored them.
Yeah. And I love what you said about personal development. Well, first of all, entrepreneurship being the biggest course in personal development, because you have to learn about yourself. You have to learn what your values are. You have to learn how to sell yourself, which is, one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people. A lot of people go into entrepreneurship because they don't want to be in a box, constricted. But oftentimes there's structure in that corporate environment that gives people a sense of security, a sense of knowingness, a sense of, hey, like everything is getting taken care of. And when we become an entrepreneur, then we have to like fend for ourselves. And there's like the doubts and the fears and the limiting beliefs that come up from this lifetime or past lifetimes, traumas, whatever might come up. So I think it's just so fascinating that all happened. So let's move into inspired conversations, and I want to talk to you about what had you start it. I know you said someone asked you to start it, someone invited you to do that, and then what was it that had you continue it and had it grow to be the show that it is today?
Such a good question. So I did a telesummit, in order to, have some visibility, and someone suggested, what my coach at the time suggested, do a telesummit. So I did. And I loved it. And I asked some pretty interesting and cool people to be on it. And it was just like, conference call reporting, that kind of thing, telesummit. And I did it, and I think I did 8 interviews for it. And at the end, it's just kind of over. And then what? And at that time, this was like probably 5 or 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. At that time, it wasn't as easy to sort of repurpose everything. Right. So it was kind of like, oh, now that's done. That was a lot of work. And now what? And a friend of mine, we were just talking, and she said, why don't you do a podcast? Because then it's ever going, and it's out there forever. It's in mm-hmm. iTunes or Stitcher or wherever it is. And I thought, And so same thing. I joined a webinar about a podcast course. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the webinar, I put my name in the thing they did, the survey or whatever. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, they said you were going to win a microphone if your name was called. And mm-hmm. I was just sitting watching, and I'm like, well, if my name's called and I win the microphone, I'll start a podcast. I mean, that's how casual I was about it. And I won. Oh my gosh. So the next day a microphone showed up on my doorstep, and I was like, okay, now what? So I started it. And what's really beautiful about it is I took a risk. I didn't know how to do it, what to do. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into technically and like the support wise and all that stuff. So the learning curve has been really big for me. But I did it anyways. And why I keep doing it is because it's so much bigger than me. And I remember that every time I do an interview, every time I hear a comment about someone hearing an interview and what the difference it made in their life, I'm not the only one. When I have that interview and I'm like, oh, they said exactly what I needed to hear today. I don't even need to publish this. It could just be my own private conversation. Wow. And yet I know if I need it, other people need it. And for me, it creates this collaborative, collective space that connects all of us around the world, really. And the other thing that really inspires me about it is I love to go in and look at my numbers, not to look at my numbers, but to look at the locations where people are listening. I mean, people are listening in locations that I've never been to. I don't know anybody there, and it's so cool to me to see like that reach, and that it's possible for us right now to have that reach. And that inspires me because I feel like you can reach into somebody's world and they give you that permission and space to listen to you and share their time. And it's such an honor to have that. And I feel like it's been really easy for me. I love being in this conversation. I love being in the interview space. My curious nature loves to ask the questions because I want to know, I want to know what to do to make it better. I want to know how to optimize something in my life or my business. I want to know what you're doing and how that happened for you. And I'm curious, and that overcoming story, because at the end of the day, we're all the same. At the end of the day, we're really all here to do the same thing, to be ourselves, to be on purpose, to be honest about who we are, not only with ourselves, but with everybody around us. And I think that's what we're seeing in the world right now, transform, is this lack of authenticity, the lack of truth of who we are and who we're being in the world. And for me, the podcast and Inspired Conversations just sort of envelops the work I do on another level. But it's interesting because it's not coaching or anything. It's a conversation. And I just find it so amazing to connect with people like you and, all the people I've interviewed, because there's so many amazing people in the world doing amazing things to uplift this planet right now. And I believe it's what the world needs. We need some drops of inspiration, some opportunity to just take inspired action and get moving and motivated and get connected with people who will help us do that. And podcasting has created that for me, just even recently, having an amazing podcasting community of friends and supporters and aligning with everybody. It's just been this beautiful collaboration and friendship and community that I also wasn't expecting. So at this point, I feel like I'm not going to stop now because of what I see the impact is, not just with me and my show, but how I can support others and theirs and what everybody's doing collectively. It's like this revolution around it. And it, everyone says it's the wild, wild west, which it kind of feels like that, but it kind of feels like it in the most amazing, supportive, positive way, because anything is possible. I mean, anyone can start a podcast right now, today. If someone's listening to this and they're like, I want to do that, there's so many ways for you to do it. And it's not impossible. I mean, if I can do it, anyone can do it. So, I mean, it continues to inspire me and connect me with people who I learn from. And so that is why I continue to do it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I know in your show there's a mix of business, of life lessons, of spirituality. I'm curious, how do you see those blends coming together and showing up? What are you noticing throughout those conversations, and the fact that you pair those together, you bring them together to create this combo? What does that combo really produce for you?
Gosh, for me, the combination is specific to like who I am, like a little bit of spirituality mixed with a little bit of smart savvy, mixed with a little bit of, entrepreneurship strategy, and that like business strategic mind. I am this like combination of business strategy and spirituality and connectedness and intuitiveness, and I work at that all the time. I mean, and the layers have been peeling for me. I mean, I know everyone talks about the niche and being really focused. And for me, this is the niche for me, because it's how I learn and grow. It's all the pieces. I think it's like the pie, that we have of our life and our business, and there's little slices of it. Some of it is only business related, and some of it is only like personal related. And what I've come to learn in the work that I do coaching clients, whether they're in corporate or whether they're an entrepreneur starting or, mid to small business, all of our stuff is intermingled, all of it, whether we're really successful at our work and our career, or our business is struggling and we're trying to move through it, we're dealing with our personal stuff at the same time. It's like we're juggling. We've grabbed one piece of it, another piece is flying in the air that you might be uncertain of, right? And it's like you could be really certain and focused on like just business strategies, but then what's happening over here behind the scenes with your family or your relationships and your connections, right? And so it's like it's finding that balance between everything. And I find the balance for me is in my spiritual world, in my my business strategy mind, feeding that and keeping that in a certain place, and overlapping it, because it's all layers, right? And so for me, it's like, it's just all the layers of who I am. I mean, if you want to know what I'm interested, just go see who I'm talking to. Yeah. And part of that is surrender, right? Like there's been a moment in the past few years where, initially I was inviting all the people I was interested in speaking with. And then there was this pivot moment where people started coming to me and the universe started bringing me people. And I would have these interviews, and I laugh about it in my mastermind, that they'll say, what was the theme today? And it's like, wow, I talked to 4 or 5 different people doing totally different things, and the theme was the same. Even though one guy was talking about business, one guy was talking about spirituality, there's like this theme that goes through it. And so to me, that reflection shows me that I'm still on course, right? So that's been really interesting, and surrendering to that process and allowing it to be that for me and for everybody. Because like I said, if I need to hear it, I know I'm not the only one. I know for sure I'm not the only one.
That's right. So let's dive even deeper, Amy. What is your biggest challenge to surrendering right now, and how are you responding to that challenge or opportunity?
Gosh, so surrendering right now, I mean, I think it's about like the next steps, the bigger visibility, the allowing myself to be seen and heard, and even more grounded in myself. And so it was a big deal for me to surrender, to have some of those conversations about things I'm interested in, wondering if people are going to take me seriously when I'm talking about spirituality. And I'm also this business strategist, right? I go into businesses and I help them with their business. Like, does that make sense to people? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. And then after I got over my head game and head trip, I just did it anyways, right? And I think right now I'm in that space of going even deeper with the connectiveness of who I am in the work that I'm doing, and allowing it to just be that, like who I am in the work that I'm doing. I'm bringing a lot of experience from my corporate experience and my entrepreneur experience. And then also I bring this, connection and connective strategy to the mix that I can't explain. It's like the surrender of that piece is really interesting right now. And sharing it, like, sharing it with you right now, and not having up like a veil to say that that's not my struggle. It's not that it's so much a struggle. It's just the allowing it to be what it is, and to me also, many years ago in the beginning, when people would say, oh, just surrender, let go and let God, or let go and let the universe. And I would get so mad. Like, what does that mean? Like, let go of what? And I knew as soon as they said it, someone would say, let go. And I'd be like, forever, I would hold on even tighter.
Yeah.
So I think it's the process of understanding you in the middle of it all. You know, like how does that work for me? It works that way for that person. I've seen it work that way for that person, but what feels right for me? And doing it anyways, right? It's like standing on the edge, knowing you're safe and moving into it anyways. And I think for me, it's allowing myself to really listen to myself and go where I need to go. You know, there's like, for me, there's some opportunities coming, and I kind of like to figure it out and know where it's going to lead me. You know, like I like to get on a train and know it's landing in New York, and that's where I'm going to get to the station. You know, I don't necessarily love getting on a train and ending up someplace completely unknown, right? The unknown is like my scary place. And I think for me, surrendering into like, well, it's divine, right, and perfect, and I'm going to land where I'm supposed to land. That is the practice I'm in right now, because some stuff is coming to me and I can't figure it out. And I know I'm not supposed to, but I know there's brilliance in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You know, I think I totally get it, because for a long time I was attached to how I was supposed to make money, or how I was supposed to grow my coaching business, or how I was supposed to show up and look. And especially like recently, I'm so grateful for my girlfriend, amazing girlfriend. I love her so much. And she just empowers me to be me, you know? And I trust myself to be myself. I allow myself to be myself. I am enough being myself. I'm more than enough being myself. Like, there's a surrender in that. There's a surrender in needing to, like, I want to get to more places. I want to be more. I want to grow and be my greatest possible self. And where am I at right now? Okay, so surrender the attachment to being somewhere else. Surrender the need, the desperation, the frustration of not yet being there, and just like say, surrender. Okay, this moment is everything, and what do I have in this moment? I have me, and I am enough, and I am fulfilled, and I have amazing people around me, amazing inspired conversations with human beings that freaking blow my mind, and just like to look back. Someone was on earlier today, talking about looking back down the mountain and recognizing the journey that we've gone, you know, on this climb, so to speak, of becoming our highest self. You know, it's interesting that we have the highest self, right? Like, it's up. For some reason we go up to get to the best self, and when we're in our lower self or a low frequency, we're not operating out of love or joy or anything like that. So it's like highest self is joy, peace, happiness, and love. And as we go to our higher self and operating out of that more and more, it's important to look back on the journey and celebrate that. And I think there's an aspect of surrendering to, I know that there's so much still to go, so much desire, but hey, let's enjoy this for a moment or a few moments to remember how far we've actually come.
Yeah, it's that presence, right? Like the presence of you where you are, you know, like the highest self, because you're at your highest moment now.
Right.
Now,
yes.
And then now, right?
Yes.
And so looking back, because we all do come a long way, whether we want to recognize it or not, we've all come a long way on our journey. Every day we wake up, we've come another day, we've come another way, right? And it's just that intention that we have each day to how we're creating and where we want to be, and allowing ourselves to be where we are, no matter what. You know, you might not feel like your highest self on one day because yesterday was so great, but today is like another layer of that, right? And it's just being yourself and presencing with yourself and all that. I think what you just said is so beautiful. And you and your girlfriend have such a beautiful energy. I mean, I've been witness to the two of you, and you really do support one another. And I think that being free to be yourself in relationship, no matter what the relationship, a business partner, your family, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your partners, all partners, you know, being able to be conscious of yourselves and one another and free to be yourself and trusting that is like such a place that who doesn't want to be in that space and share with one another. It's really beautiful. And seeing you in that and seeing that worth, you know, that self-worth as you stand in it is really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's important to have those people around us,
Absolutely.
like key people in our lives to design our life, to attract those people, to be clear on who we want, to be calibrated to what's the caliber of people that we want to have in our life, and so clear on that, and don't settle. That's one of the things that I did to attract her, is I was taking bold actions. I was sharing on my marathons, this dream woman that I was calling in, how incredible she was. She's from Europe. She is beautiful. She sings, she dances, she does art, and she's, philanthropic. And she has perfect boobs, a perfect butt. Like, she's the best, right? It's like I created that on the show. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts about, we talked about the highest self. I am my highest self right now. And one day I might see that, oh, yesterday I thought I was better. I thought I did more. I thought I had more. I thought it was like a better day. I have the philosophy of today is the best day ever, right? Because it's all we have. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not promised. So I'm choosing to make today the best day ever. How do you deal with the concept of we are the creators of our reality, and what we say and what we perceive creates our reality? But then there's the reality of, well, what is, though? What is maybe I was at $10,000 in my bank yesterday, and today I'm at $9,000. And how can I say today is the best day ever if yesterday I had more money than I did today? So I'm curious what your thoughts are on being the creator of that reality, speaking today is the best day ever, when things in reality, objects, circumstances, things don't match up to that created statement.
Yeah, such a good question. It's that experience that we're having of it, and it's not something that we are. It's the experience of it that we're having. Like, you are not your bank account. You are not what just happened in that conversation, in that relationship. That it's like detaching in such a way that you're connected, but that doesn't define you. It's like being recalibrated to your values. It's, again, going back to that set point. What's your set point? And yeah, we all have our highs and lows, and we can create judgment around it. Like you said, like, if every day is your best possible day, it's going to be your best possible day. That's your set point. Right. And I think you're reminding people, like, to create a set point. Like, there's something that I learned from an interview early on, and it comes from Julia Rogers Hamrick. It's not mine, it's hers. She says, easy world. I live in easy world.
Yes, I heard you say that last week.
Yeah, and when you say that, I'm not kidding. It creates a new set point. It's like, and that can go for anything. And when she I think she was in my first 10 conversations, and I've taken it. Like, I'm like, run with easy world, because she shares that, and it's like, wow, when we create that set point, that's where we come from. And so I think, like you, the best possible day ever, then it's going to be the best possible day. And if it has something that doesn't feel good happen, okay, it's still the best possible day, right? Because you're present in it. And I think it's watching your mind be comparing and judging and looking around for evidence that it's not the best possible day, right? Like, what our bank accounts ebb and flow, our feelings ebb and flow, and we've got to ride them out in a safe, loving, and emotional way. Like, embrace our emotions, because they come and go, but we don't want to be attached to them, because if you fall down on the ground like it's the worst time ever, tomorrow you might be in that same space, right? If you just hold on to it and grab. But if you let it, like, okay, this doesn't feel so good, and I'm just going to be here with it. And then I'm going to move on. And you have that, like, okay, I'm going to get back to my set point, and you let it ebb and flow. That will change everything. And believe me, I'm challenged by this too. Like, I have become reactive, and there's times when I had some really big change in my life where I really needed to trust, and boy, was I judging all of it. And I know that comes from a place of self-worth and self-love and presencing. And I think if we can, not judge it, we might have an opinion about something, but if we can just hold it lightly, like, you know what, that totally sucked. Okay, that sucked. I wish it wasn't like that, but that is what it is. And find what you can get out of it, and keep it moving.
What I hear is, like, the meaning that we give things, it's not so, like, deeply entrenched and ingrained and in stone. It's like, okay, that sucked. Now what do I want to create? You know, it's not being tied to the feeling hook, line, and sinker. It's like, oh, this happens, that means I'm supposed to blah, you know, and like feeling like crap. So it's like being able to say, okay, that happened, but what do I want to do now? What's the new direction that I want to pivot to?
Yeah. And you know what? This is practice, right? We are constantly all ever evolving and practicing, you know, like I'll be honest, I was in a terrible relationship like a couple years ago, and I did everything to make it right, you know, to make it work out, and it didn't. And you know what? It sucked. And I went there. I let things go dark, you know, and it sucked. But I didn't take it with me, you know, like I can look back now and say, okay, this is what I maybe would have done differently. This is how I behaved in it. This is my 150% of responsibility because we're co-creating with one another, and I showed up in it too, right? So it's like we just have to have that perspective for ourselves, and it's the work, right? Life is the work and the practice. And if you're stepping into awareness and you're stepping into consciousness and you're stepping into a new higher version of yourself, challenges are going to hit you. It's not always bright and shiny. Like there's going to be moments that suck, you know, there just are, because sometimes we're stepping out and then the challenge happens. And I think it's how we show up in the challenge, what our perspective is. And like you said, hook, line, and sinker is such a good visual, because it's like, am I going to let that relationship hook, line, and sinker me to the bottom of the ocean for the rest of my life?
Right.
No, you know, no, maybe it did for a little bit, but you know, no, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let go of that anchor and move forward. And I think if we're having challenges and we're defining our lives by things outside of ourselves, that is your moment to stop, to pause, to have some awareness, like, okay, hold up, you know, I'm co-creating this. I'm responsible. I'm 100% responsible for myself everywhere I go. And what is my conversation I'm having with myself about it? You know, you can start there, because if you can recognize the language that you're speaking in your mind, you know, like, oh, this sucks, this is terrible, it's never going to get better, and the negativity, you can pause it, you can witness it, and then you can pull back from it. But when you're super in it and it's all you hear, you know, there's a moment where you need to shake yourself down. But we get there. I think we're all ever evolving. Anyone listening to this has got some sort of awareness going on in their world, because I know that's who you attract. And, you know, everybody has their moments for sure. And I think hold them lightly, know that you can get through it, and allow yourself to process whatever that looks like for you, you know?
Beautiful. What would you recommend as some ways to process in being able to keep that inspired conversation going in our own lives? How do we process and stay in our power as the ones we've been waiting for?
Yeah, well, first of all, you got to have the awareness of what's going on, right? So whatever you can do for awareness, process. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go, right? But something simple you could do is just take a deep breath, you know, put your hand on your heart, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and say thank you. That will get you out of your head right away. You know, like I've done that before where something crazy just happened and I'm like, thank you. Even though I maybe don't mean it, like that's weird.
Right.
But it stops something. It stops an old pattern. It stops an old behavior. It stops something for you. You know, take a deep breath, get present in your body, feel your feet on the ground, feel your breath going in and out. I mean, that is the most simple form of getting back to yourself and allowing yourself to just recognize, like, okay, what's going on for me right now? What are these thoughts that are triggering me right now? And just having some questions to ask yourself in the moment, you know, like, okay, what else is possible here? You know, this looks like this, and I like it to look like this. What else is possible? And pausing for the answer. Pausing to let that answer come to you and not actually answer the question yourself, you know, because sometimes when there's like aggravation or something that stirred us up and we try to answer it, we kind of create the more aggravation, right? Like we kind of swirl in it. So if we can pause and really like get into our bodies and ground ourselves, and this can be for business, conversations in life and business, anything, just like that moment of pause to sort of process yourself. Nobody knows what's going on in there but you. So allowing yourself to process yourself, however that works for you. And I also say, find what works for you. For some people, it's going outside and being in nature. For some people, it might be listening to music or dancing or cooking. Like, it means something different to everybody. It doesn't have to be some existential thing that you do, right? It can be whatever means something to you, whatever is meaningful to you. And also, I would say connect with somebody, talk to
Mm.
somebody, like work it out, like process it out loud with someone who can be a good sounding board, someone who's positive in your life, who will give you a good sounding board. Even if you're just like, hey, I need to vent for 5 minutes and I need you to tell me if I'm just like off my rocker.
Mm.
Like processing with someone and connecting with someone, whether it's like this, like on your phone, like on video, on FaceTime, or in person. I think we need that like eye to eye contact to
Totally.
help ourselves be seen.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Something came up for me, and I don't know why I'm asking this. I've never asked this before, but if there was a mystery to solve in this lifetime, what mystery would you solve?
Oh my God. I mean, there's so many things I want to know, right? What mystery would I solve? I mean, I kind of want to solve the mystery of why love and connection and our deepest connection core of who we all are, we are all individuals but united. Like, why don't we know that? Why can't we snap our fingers and solve that mystery and all be connected, all be one, look at each other in the eye and be just like, I love you. I see you. We are here for one another. How can I support you? That mystery. And I get it's a bigger thing that's going on in the world, but it's like, why can't we as humans just get that? Like peace, love, and harmony is our natural state of being and joy. Why does it have to be weird to be like peace, love, and harmony and enjoy and bliss and having our greatest life happen and unfold? Why do we even question it? I think I'd like to solve that mystery.
That's beautiful. I love it. Such a great answer. That's a cool question.
Yeah, ask more people. How would you answer that question?
Okay, I love it. Back to me. Let's see. If there was a mystery in the world that in my lifetime that I wanted to solve, what mystery would I want to solve? This is a great question. I think the mystery of how to like what is each person's superpower? Like if people could have a manual, so to speak, on what their superpowers are, what their gifts are. And I think we're moving in that direction, just like I'm sure we're moving in the direction of why can't we and how will we have everyone tap into love and peace and all that kind of stuff. Superpowers, I feel like people's gifts, people's soul message, like why we're here, the purpose, so to speak, and the unfoldment of that, the flourishing of that, the mystery of why we can't tap into that sooner, why it takes so much hardship and effort to get to there, and the mystery of can we make it simple? Can we equip people, from birth based on their energy, based on their being, human being, some kind of device or tool that helps people say, hey, here's what your superpowers are going to be. There's like tests and assessments and stuff like that. Here's what your superpower is going to be. You're probably going to want to do this. Stay away from this, and you'll live a great life. That's
I think we kind of already know though. And I think we just take ourselves in different directions because we have choice, right? We're humans. We have free will. I think if we allowed ourselves to, maybe that's, we're changing, like right now, we're totally changing on the planet. But I think as the children grow up, I think the new generations are going to be more tuned and tapped into their superpowers. Yeah. And I think humans are going to allow them to come forth. I think there's been like a dumbing down of things like you can't do that because people didn't understand.
Right.
But I feel like, I would. I mean, I wish I had my own manual that I could be like, okay, here's your book of life that I can actually read and know. I think that's good and cool. But I kind of have a sense we already know.
Juicy. I love it. Awesome. So, Amy, this has been phenomenal, and anyone who is watching right now is loving it, I'm sure. And let's start to wrap it up. Bring it home. And let's final invite, final call to action for people about what we've been talking about being their greatest possible self, about having inspired conversations, being the one. Let's bring it home.
Gosh, I want people to know, like, you are the one you've been waiting for. I don't have the answers. Chris doesn't have the answers. Like, you're the one. You already know. And that if people could really get that, like when I felt like I got that, everything started recalibrating for me, right? I realized, oh, I'm the one. I'm my own set point. I get to co-create that. I create that for myself. I get to say, not you and not you and not you and not all these other people who've been in my head. I get to create that and then co-create it with all the people I choose to play with, right? So I want people to really recognize if you're struggling or if you're dabbling in something, like, just sit with yourself and let yourself really know who you are. You can answer that. It's sometimes a whisper, it's sometimes super loud, and you're like, duh. And if anything, you can ask people around you, like, what do you think are my gifts? People are going to tell you things that you're like, wow, really? You think I'm that? And ask them to give positive feedback to you. But, like, allow yourself to be authentically you. And if you notice stuff coming up, I believe we all need help in the world. I mean, we all need help. We all need support. So ask for it, find it, get it. There's so many podcasts to listen to. There's so many people like Chris doing amazing marathons all day long that you can tap into and, get the answers you need. And I will say, trust. If you're led to something and you listen to something, trust it. Because what I know for sure is that when something comes to you and you actually surrender, and whether you hit play or you have the conversation, there's an answer there for you. And it's not what you think. It's always in an unlikely source. But when you can trust that, like my podcast, my first interview in my podcast started with a thought that I had, like, go ask him to be your first interview. And I'm like, why would I do that? That's so weird. And I did it. And like cut to 4 years later, like there's a reconnection happening. And I know that's so beyond my doing, right? Of a friendship and of a collaboration. So just trust yourself and move into that. Because remember, you are the one you've been waiting for. You've got the answers. And this life is so much for you. You're meant to live your greatest possible life and self here and now. So that's what we're all doing here.
Amen. Amen. Amy, people love you. How do they stay connected with you, and what do we want them to do next?
Oh, I want you to just, be yourselves, connect on, I'm on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And my website is amyschuber.com with a B. Okay. And my podcast is at inspiredconversations.net. And you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, all those good places. So yeah, you can connect with me there.
Awesome. Amazing. Amy, you're a superstar. Thank you so much for coming on today. It was a blast. The conversation is always so juicy, and thank you for dedicating your life to sharing these inspired conversations, creating more love, peace, and joy in the world. You rock.
Chris, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here with you and your tribe and in your energy. You just are such an up-leveler and uplifter. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this time with you. It's been fun.
Awesome, Amy. Have the best day ever, and we'll see you soon, okay? Awesome. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.